deck. And so that's what we're going to see as Chris Vanmeter is up a game with Bug Control, but David Gleicher with his Scarf and his Birthing Pods are what we're going to see happen right now, and I am excited by this.
And most notably, one Recurring Nightmare in his deck. I bring this up because in these sort of gray and black utility creature comes into play, leaves play sort of trigger decks, Recurring Nightmare is completely busted.
Yes.
The idea that there was no room to fit it in your Ifbif, Ifrit, Nick Fit deck struck me as nonsense. So I'm glad to see at least one copy of Recurring Nightmare in this deck.
And I remember David's report about him playing this deck very specifically because, his report was like, I could have played like Shardless Bug or, Esper Stoneblade or something like that, but I wanted to play a more fun, kind of cool deck. He basically really likes playing this deck a lot. So he sleeves it up at the tournament that he ended up making top 8 with. And now he's off, obviously, to a really, really nice start here. It looks like Vanmeter is trying to establish a Life from the Loam lock with Wasteland. It's going to take a little while because Gleicher has a host of lands out there, but his clock isn't very good. There's just a Baleful Strix.
Yeah. David appears to be flush with basics right now.
Yeah. So again, Vanmeter and Bronwyn are both playing the same Bug Control deck here that has Deathrite Shaman, Snapcaster Mage, Dillion Click, some Abrupt Decays, Brainstorm, Jace's, Force of Wills, and stuff like that, but you're not going to find Ancestral Visions and Shardless Agent here, as Life from the Loam is going to get Hardcast, going to get Wastelands back, and maybe a little Fetch land action, even though Chris does have 3 Wastelands right in the graveyard. He's also got a Creeping Tarpon. He's going to get that back with the 2 Wastelands.
Gleicher with a lot of basic lands in his list. 2 basic islands, 2 forests, and 2 swamps. So establishing Wasteland lock, not the easiest against this deck.
A Birthing Body. Yes. Yes.
I assume this is game over.
This is what I needed in my life.
Oh, man, this chain gets pretty sweet. You can go get an Eternal Witness, put some things in the sink. I mean, whatever.
Do what you do.
Yeah.
Here's a basic forest, and he's got all basics out there. So he's got Forest, Swamp, Island. He is in the Joe Lissette school of thought. Maybe he's in training.
Some revised basics.
Yeah. They are horribly ugly, as here's a Birthing Pod and going to sacrifice the Strix. Show me what you got, baby.
Yeah.
And he's obviously going to pay 4 Phyrexian mana there to be able to use this, to play it and activate. And now here we go. You said Finks in the sink?
I like getting a Witness here.
Okay.
As insurance. You can, like, go get your Strix or whatever.
Vanmeter rubs his hand together, knowing maybe something.
If you've played any Modern, Birthing Pod on a stable board is often the death knell.
Yeah, oftentimes you're dead. Birthing Pod is one of my favorite Magic cards. It's actually the card that qualified me for my last Pro Tour in Return to Ravnica. He's going to go get a Glenalendra Archmage. I think he's jumped the curve 1 too many.
Yeah, I don't believe that is legal.
Yeah, 3. There we go. He's ahead of himself. That's a good card, though. That's things to come.
Yeah, he's giving you a preview.
Yeah. I can go get that if I want. Okay, there's Eternal Witness. Trigger. Looking at the Baleful Strix. Oh, Veteran Explorer. Okay.
Sure.
Getting more lands out of the old deck. Now he's going to pass the turn back. So what's the top end? Like, what's the 5? I know there's a Thragtusk.
He's got a Thraggy. He's got a Shriek Maw. He's got... That's it. That's it for 5s. I'm checking the sideboard. He's got an Aetherling. That's sweet. Hopefully that comes up.
Here's a Thoughtseize. Revealing Pernicious Deed and taking the Veteran Explorer.
And a 6 Slime.
Oh,
in the sideboard, so who knows? Could be here, could not be.
I love a good Birthing Pod.
I would prefer just to be surprised.
And it looks like Eternal Witness is going to bite the dust now, too. Maybe if you get Abrupt Decay. So there are no creatures out there right now. And their Abrupt Decay does take care of the Witness.
But David, of course, drawing extremely live here.
There's a Misty Rainforest. That's not going to do it. I wonder if he wants to deploy the Deed or not. And the answer is yes.
Now that Chris knows about it.
Take a look at the old P. Diddy. Pernicious Deed. Can't kill Planeswalkers.
No. It was not templated with Planeswalkers in mind. No. It did not have the foresight to look 10 years in the future and knew that they were going to do a new permanent type.
Still a really, really good Magic card, though.
Yes.
Baleful Strix. Oh, the chain is back on.
It begins.
Take a draw. Look at all that value.
Yeah. Look at all this. It's totally free.
Yeah. Baleful Strix. Give me a 3-drop. Finks in the sink.
All right. Protection against a single removal spell that doesn't exile here.
Getting life is actually kind of important here, too.
Yep.
Looks like Liliana Vale was the draw here for Vanmeter.
And see, the insurance very valuable here.
Definitely agree.
So then this Sphinx can be converted into a Glenelendric Archmage, which you also can't edict, which then can be converted into a Thragtusk, which you also can't edict,
Yep.
which then can be converted into a Grave Titan.
Hold on. You also can't edict.
You also cannot
Yeah,
edict that.
I like that. I like that.
Then you use your token from the Grave Titan, you go get a Veteran Explorer, and you start.
Oh, we start up
doing
to
it
zero.
all over again.
Up to zero. Okay, I like this. Does this thing have a 7? It needs a 7 in it.
No, it does not appear so.
It's like a Sheralded.
It needs some non-edictable 7-drop.
Just to value you right into the ground. Oh, a Hornet Queen. Does that
Oh,
cost 7?
nice.
Yeah. See, Chris
Tapping the mat.
Yeah. Birthing pot, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So Gleicher is going to even it up here, and we're going to work our way towards a third and final game. Now, I'm going to go over Chris's sideboard here pretty quickly because I'm sure there are some hidden toys there in David's. On the sideboard here, Chris has a bunch of 2-ofs in True Name Nemesis, Thoughtseize, Disfigure, Marsh Casualty, Swan Song, Surgical Extraction, Pernicious Deed, and 1 copy of Maelstrom Pulse. Pulse is easy to bring in. You want to be able to kill Birthing Bot. It also has some other applications, of course. Pernicious Deed kind of plays the same role. Can be a big mass removal effect in this particular matchup. Surgical Extraction I don't think is great here. True Name Nemesis I actually think is pretty good since it allows Chris to attack through the nonsense that David is doing. Swan Song counters enchantments, so will not counter Birthing Pods, so you don't have to worry about that. Marsh Casualty is more for True Name Nemesis, mirror match type stuff. Thoughtseize is a good discard spell in this matchup. I can see that coming in, and then Disfigure. Again, it's okay, but you're playing against a deck that wants to generate a ton of value, so a one pinpoint rule spell is not going to be particularly good.
Yeah, and you hit it right on the head right there. You look at David's deck, and there's a ton of stuff that's being played to the board, a ton of creatures and permanents and things like that. So you look at cards like Pernicious Deed and spot removal spells, and you say, yeah, for sure, there's stuff going on the board. I want to do this. But David's deck, all the stuff is generating value on the way in or on the way out. That it's really hard for Chris to win that kind of fight over the long term because David's going to likely out-resource him. Chris actually needs to be kind of the beatdown in this matchup because inevitability is on David's side. You saw that game, Chris tried to establish a Loam Lock, and David was very easily able to power out of that.
Yeah.
So I think Chris needs to get out on the front foot with his Planeswalkers and his beatdown effects and try to get the ball rolling before David's able to overwhelm him with card advantage and value and utility. The bug control deck, not normally the aggressor in matchups, but right here I think Chris needs to be. On David's side, he has 4 copies of Force of Will on the sideboard, 3 Riptide Pilferer, which I do not know what that card is.
I do.
Oh, okay.
I do. It is a blue Merfolk. It has Morph, I believe, and when it hits you, it's a Headhunter. You just discard.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
cool.
Time Spiral.
Yeah, okay, so you can bring that in against Storm decks and control maybe in general.
You
Sweet.
can move it to Force Will, too.
2 copies of Envelop, an additional Glenelendra Archmage, an Acidic Slime, a Pernicious Deed, an Umazawa's Jitte, an Aetherling, and a Fleshbag Marauder. So, whatever. You can do whatever you like. I did see the Aetherling in his deck as he was shuffling through, so that is in there.
Looking for a little inevitability. Found some.
Sure.
I like it. I like it.
It's Legacy, so I'm a little disappointed he doesn't have Morphling, so he could pod Morphling into Aetherling. But I'm going to defer to David's wisdom here.
Would you be happier if he was potting Torchling in Aetherling?
That would be even sweeter, yeah.
Okay. That was one card that I wanted to make work so bad in that block constructed format, and it was just not good.
Yeah,
it's got awesome art too.
The Mystical Teachings deck was quite hateful to opposing cards, so it's not surprising that they struggle to show up in decks.
Yes, that is definitely true. Old Torchy, look at old Torchy. That awesome art. Arcade Post is actually here too.
Yeah,
they did the artwork on that
just
card.
Tying the ribbon on the bow right there, the bow on the package.
Change the
target,
target spell, everything. Man, I loved Torchling so much. Deathrite Shaman here from Vanmeter. You see the players at the clock. They got 10 minutes to finish up this, and what will probably take a little while.
Now these decks known for being particularly fast.
Yes.
I think David might have kept a very mana-heavy hand here.
If you're searching for a forest, I can only imagine we're going to see an Explorer turn 1.
Mm-hmm. Veteran Explorer, I assume, quite good against Chris Vanmeter. The mana of the bug deck historically strained quite thin, so no room for basics.
The no basic strategy. And yes, he did keep a mana-intensive hand, as in Veteran Explorer generates mana, and so do all of the lands in Gleicher's hand. So if Chris wants to make him discard, that's not going to work, but here's a Preordain. So take a look, Skipoo. Jace and a Creeping Tar Pit here for Vanmeter.
And a fast Jace is a really good recipe for Vanmeter in this matchup.
like a fast chase a lot. See Veteran Explorer from Weatherlight. That was the first box of Magic cards I ever got.
Pretty sweet.
My dad bought me a box of Weatherlight for Christmas. I don't know if I still have any of those cards, but it was a lot of fun opening every pack.
Sure.
The Veteran Explorer is going to propose Sower of Temptation. You didn't tell me about that one.
I mentioned the Sower.
No. No attack with the Explorer. I guess he can play a little bit better defense, as Chris is really generating a lot of mana really quickly here. He's got 2 Deathrite Shamans. Looks like he might try to deploy a Jace here now.
Yeah. And when I talk about being the beatdown, I don't necessarily mean Chris needs to be taxing David's life total. He just needs to get on the board first and fast.
Yeah.
And Jace certainly qualifies as that.
And now Jace is in the house and it's going to bounce Veteran Explorer. And Deathrite's going to come across for 1. So Gleicher needs to find some action. There's another copy of Veteran Explorer.
I don't know if that quite qualifies, but if Vanmeter was willing to unsummon the first one.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see this go around. And to be fair, Chris does have a Force Will in his hand, so I think what he might try to do is Force Will the first one, assuming that it's the original one that's coming down, and then the second one will resolve. And I still think that Chris will probably Brainstorm. But yeah, here's 2 copies. Had he played them one at a time...
Yes. An unfortunate shortcut there for Gleicher, potentially.
Yes, had he played them one at a time, I think that Chris would have actually Force of Willed the first one. Now, if I'm Chris, I have no desire to cast Force of Will.
Well, perhaps. It looks like Chris is still debating this, but yeah.
I think you can Force Will the real card, which is like a Birthing Pod or some crazy threat that Gleicher has in his Birthing Pod chain. As here's a Brainstorm, 2 and 3.
Yeah, that shortcut may end up costing David quite a bit here.
So we'll see what cards Chris is going to put back.
And Chris firmly in the front seat now. Jace online, board's pretty stable, bunch of forcible backup.
The definition of stable is Jace getting to untap with Jace.
Yeah.
Feels good. There's a Wasteland. Get that Bayou right out of here. But as we know, just like you guys do at home, Gleicher's got plenty of lands in his hand. But he is super far behind in this game. He'll take a draw step. It's a Birthing Pod. We know that's not resolving. I think Gleicher knows that's not resolving either, as Chris had stopped him momentarily. He was like, can I do this? And the answer is no.
I mean, he can send both his Veteran Explorers at Jace here, potentially.
Yeah, I actually kind of like that, too. A little surprised not to see both going in.
Yeah, it forces Chris's hand to some extent.
Yeah. Well, just wanted Jace.
Chris with a hand stacked with permission.
Is Chris going to block? Is he going to do it?
He might be clicking him inside of combat now.
See what's going on in the hand?
Yeah.
It is a very peculiar attack, just only attacking with 1 Veteran Explorer. So now that Chris has the information of what's in Gleicher's hand, sees a Birthing Pod, a Sower of Temptation, a Verdant Catacombs, a Swamp, and a Tropical Island, now he can make a more informed decision on if he wants to block. And if he does, how so? And he says, that is fine. My Jace is going to go down to 1, and you can keep your Birthing Pod because I have a counterspell for it. And I don't particularly care about Sower of Temptation. There's a Swamp. Gleicher's going to take 2. Deathrite Shaman is going to remove some things. And this is the actual card, Counterspell.
I'm a little surprised if Chris was willing to counterspell the Birthing Pod, why he would not simply take it with Vendilion Click, since David's average draw is not something that he has to counterspell.
Okay, sure. The mystery card is the mystery card that Gleicher does draw from the Vendilion Click doesn't warrant a counterspell in the same fashion that Birthing Pod actually does.
Right. Unless it's critical for you to use your mana that turn to cast counterspell because you have other things to be doing.
Sure.
Then the average draw on David's deck can't be good enough to counterspell. So.
I got you. V-Click's going to come across, put Gleicher down to 13. He was at 18, took 2 from the Phyrexian mana on Birthing Pod, and then 3 from the legendary 3/1 Flyer. So Jace is up to 3. Deathrite Shamans are playing defense, as is that creeping Tar Pit, and Gleicher's draws are not particularly great right now. Seems like an uphill climb here. 5 minutes left in this match.
And Chris with a lot of pressure. Even a Snapcaster Counterspell available.
Gleicher's going reaching now for the Explorers. Going to get into Jace, and I think Chris is perfectly fine with this 1-3, 1-3, 1-3 dance with Jace.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No reason to actually make a move. See if Gleicher's going to try to cast Solar Temptation here. Looks like he may have a Cabal Therapy.
I think it's a Deathrite Shaman, perhaps?
Okay. Yep. Don't think that Chris actually cares about that very much.
No, David's bottlenecked on mana. You have your own Deathrites to respond. I could only see Chris really wanting to counter this if he just wants to get his Snapcaster in play to just increase the clock.
Yeah.
Which maybe is worth it from just a mana efficiency standpoint. He still has enough mana left over next turn to hard cast Force of Will if it comes to it. And it looks like Chris is just trying to turn on the jets in terms of applying enough pressure to end this game quickly.
Yeah, he wants to get this game over with it just as fast as he can. And there's a Snapcaster Mage. And there is a Counterspell. Yeah, so it looks like he's trying to get this game over with fast. And there's a Tropical Island passing the turn back. You know, with about to be 3 minutes left on the clock. And of course, extra turns, all that jazz. But he wants to get the game over with as fast as he can. Does Vanmeter. You're going to see a Deathrite Shaman activation. Remove a land. Deathrite's going to dome Gleicher for 2. Put him down to 11 via Preordain. And going to untap and take a draw step. And Jace is the draw.
So now, with it having drawn a blue card this turn, if Chris is being so inclined, he can actually turn on his Creeping Tar Pit. I think he's going to play it a little bit less aggressively and just send in those creatures.
Deathrite, excuse me, goes in the back row to hardcast Force of Will.
Yep.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. Though. I don't think it changes the clock at all. Yeah, and that's going to do it. So Chris Vanmeter is going to win this match over David Gleicher, 2-1. Bug Control defeating the veteran pod deck. I think maybe David should have considered maybe a mulligan in that third game.
His hand did not seem to have much action.
Yeah, just a veteran explorer in 6 lands.